When we think of flies, we picture the common housefly buzzing around our homes. But flies are far more than household pests. They're a vast and diverse group, with over 150,000 known species in the order Diptera, meaning 2 wings. Flies inhabit nearly every environment on Earth, from Arctic tundra to scorching deserts. They range from tiny midges to large fuzzy bee flies, each playing a unique role in nature. The life of a fly is a story of transformation: egg, maggot, pupa, and finally adult. Maggots are voracious eaters, breaking down decaying matter and recycling nutrients back into the ecosystem. As adults, many flies become pollinators, unsung heroes alongside bees and butterflies. Hoverflies, for example, mimic bees and pollinate flowers as they feed on nectar. Even the tiny midge is essential. Without it, cacao trees wouldn't produce chocolate. Flies are also nature's cleanup crew, decomposing waste that would otherwise accumulate. Imagine a world without them. Dead animals, fallen leaves and dung would linger, disrupting the cycle of life. Flies and their larvae turn waste into nutrients, enriching soil and supporting new plant growth. They're a vital food source for birds, fish, spiders, and other insects. Their constant work keeps ecosystems balanced and healthy. Flies are not just nuisances, they're essential to pollination, decomposition, and the food web. The next time you see a fly, remember, it's a tiny but crucial part of the planet's machinery. Their buzzing is the sound of nature at work. Without flies, the world would be a very different and much less vibrant place. Imagine a world where flies never evolved. Forests would be thick with undecayed leaves and wood, as decomposition would crawl at a snail's pace. Fungi and bacteria would try to keep up, but without maggots, nutrient cycling would stall. Soil would be poor, stunting plant growth and reducing biodiversity. Herds of animals would leave behind mountains of dung, locking away nutrients and transforming landscapes into wastelands of waste. Carcasses would linger, mummifying or rotting slowly, increasing disease risk and changing the balance of scavengers. Many flowering plants which co-evolved with fly pollinators might never have existed, or would look and smell very different. The world's floral diversity would shrink with fewer colors, scents, and shapes. The food web would unravel. Birds, fish, and amphibians that rely on flies would struggle or disappear. Swallows and swifts would find little to eat. Trout would lose a key food source. Spiders' webs would catch fewer meals, and predator-prey relationships would be simpler and less dynamic. Biodiversity would plummet, and ecosystems would be less resilient. The absence of flies would mean a quieter, messier, and less interconnected world. Life's complexity would be diminished at every level. In a world without flies, pollination would fall to bees, butterflies, moths, and beetles, but they can't do it all. Many plants evolved to attract flies with unique colors and scents, some mimicking rotting meat. Without flies, these plants would vanish, leaving gaps in ecosystems and reducing plant diversity. Our food supply would suffer. Cacao trees, and thus chocolate, carrots, onions, and certain berries depend on fly pollination. Other insects might help, but flies are often the most efficient pollinators for these crops. Fewer pollinators mean less productive agriculture and a less resilient food system. Wildflowers and rainforest blooms that rely on flies would disappear, making landscapes less colorful and diverse. The intricate dance between plant and pollinator would be lost, replaced by a simpler, less vibrant world. Fewer plants mean less food and shelter for animals, altering entire ecosystems. Herbivores would have fewer options, affecting predators and changing forest structure. The understory would be sparse, and the web of life would unravel. The absence of fly pollinators would mean not just fewer flowers, but a less stable, less lively world. The buzz of activity would be replaced by a great stillness. The world's beauty and complexity would fade. Without flies, decomposition would grind to a halt. Autumn leaves would pile up, forming thick mats that block sunlight and water, stifling new growth. Forests would struggle to regenerate, and the cycle of life would be broken. Animal carcasses would linger, decaying slowly and spreading disease. Nutrients locked in dead matter would be released at a glacial pace, starving ecosystems. Dung would accumulate, hardening into unusable waste and choking grasslands. Grazing animals would have less food, and landscapes would become barren. Rivers and streams would suffer too. Without aquatic fly larvae, algae and decaying matter would build up, turning clear water murky and lifeless. Fish and other aquatic life would struggle to survive in oxygen-poor, polluted waters. The absence of flies would cripple nature's recycling system. Land and water alike would be overwhelmed by waste. The planet would struggle to clean itself, and life would suffer. Imagine waking up tomorrow to a world where every fly has vanished. At first, the silence might seem peaceful, but it would signal disaster. Within days, waste would pile up in cities and countryside alike, overwhelming sanitation systems. The smell would be unbearable, and dead animals would linger, spreading disease. Farmers would face mountains of manure, and natural recycling would halt. Birds, frogs, lizards, and fish that rely on flies would starve, triggering mass die-offs. The food web would unravel, with predator populations crashing and ecosystems collapsing. Crops that depend on fly pollination, like chocolate, carrots, and onions, would fail within a season. Wild plants would struggle to reproduce, threatening biodiversity. Scientific research would suffer too. The fruit fly, a cornerstone of genetics, would be lost. The sudden disappearance of flies would devastate food, environment, and knowledge. The world would become less livable almost overnight. The loss would be immediate, global, and irreversible. The silence would be the sound of collapse. The shock of losing flies would ripple through every ecosystem. As insect-eating animals starve, their predators, hawks, snakes, mammals, would also decline. The web of life would unravel, destabilizing even distant ecosystems. Decomposition would stall, locking up nutrients and starving plants. Forests and grasslands would thin and crop yields would fall, even for wind-pollinated plants. Soil would erode, turning fertile land to desert. Rivers and lakes would choke with algae, creating dead zones and toxic water. The planet's circulatory system would fail, threatening wildlife and human societies alike. Agriculture would collapse, famine would spread, and disease would rise. The loss of flies would reveal how much we depend on even the smallest creatures. The world would be left struggling to survive. Nature adapts, and flies are no exception. As the climate warms, flies may shift their ranges, moving to cooler regions or higher altitudes. Some species could produce more generations per year, boosting populations in new areas. Urban environments create new pressures. Flies that thrive in cities may evolve to resist pesticides and exploit human waste. We might see super-urban flies adapted to artificial lights and nocturnal activity. Flies and the diseases they carry could evolve in response to our control measures, creating an ongoing arms race. But there's opportunity too. We could breed flies for beneficial purposes. Black soldier flies could convert food waste into animal feed and compost. Hoverflies could be bred as super pollinators for crops. By understanding fly genetics and behavior, we could turn pests into partners for a sustainable future. The evolution of flies is a story of adaptation and potential. Our relationship with them could shape the world for the better. In a world without flies, we'd have to manage every scrap of organic waste ourselves. Massive composting and recycling systems would be essential, driving up costs and changing daily life. Agriculture would need a revolution. Robotic pollinators, manual pollination, or genetically modified crops might become the norm. Food would be more expensive and less diverse, a constant reminder of what nature once provided. Nature itself would feel emptier. Forests unnaturally tidy or choked with debris, the air silent, and wildlife diminished. The vibrant, messy beauty of ecosystems would be replaced by sterility and scarcity. We'd learn the hard way that even the smallest creatures are vital. The flyless world would teach us that nature is a complex, interconnected system. Every species lost is a lesson in ecology and humility. We'd be forced to become better stewards of what remains. The cost of losing flies would be paid in effort, money, and lost wonder. Our world would be poorer in every sense. The story of a world without flies is a warning. Every creature, no matter how small, has a purpose. Flies are pollinators, decomposers, and a vital link in the food web. If we eliminated them, the consequences would be catastrophic. Waste would pile up, food supplies would falter, and ecosystems would collapse. The buzz of a fly is the sound of nature's machinery at work. It's the hum of nutrients cycling, flowers being pollinated, and life being sustained. Understanding this changes our perspective. Flies are not just pests, but partners in planetary health. The challenges ahead require respect for nature's connections. We can't remove what we dislike and expect the system to function. The humble fly teaches us humility and interdependence. Next time you hear that buzz, remember the unseen work it represents. In the grand web of life, every buzz matters.